Hey guys, Big Wheel Dog 82 in the soil here, and we're inside the house today. It's way too cold in the garage. I can't do it out there, so we're gonna try this inside. And if you see anything coming up around this area of the screen, it's probably one of the dogs or it's both of them. So we're gonna give this a shot. Let's see how this turns out. So last time you guys were here, we had started the bioassay and we are starting to get results with the true leaves coming out. We were starting to notice a little bit of differences in the mediums, and there was some that weren't really doing so hot. There were some that were just rock stars, but guess what? We've got some real differences to show this time, and you will be surprised. You absolutely will be surprised with what has happened and what hasn't happened. Again, dogs. So don't mind them. So we're going to go up to the grow room. We're going to take a look around and see how this bioassay concluded. Hope you guys are ready. All right, guys. This is the long anticipated conclusion to the bioassay test that we did. So here we have it. All 6 of our inputs, and as you can tell, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some of them are more full, and you might notice a few other things too. But again, before we start taking a deep dive into it, remember this isn't necessarily about, oh, what's the greenest or the most lush. We're mainly just trying to see that these plants grow true to form. Okay, so let's start with our very first one. So the first one that we're knocking off is the control, which is just as a refresher, ProMix. There was 4 beans in there initially, and I cut it down to 2. And as you can see, for not having any kind of additional amendments, it's pretty well grown. There's no issues as far as deformities or nothing, which we would expect. So I would say that's obviously safe, which is why it's the control. All right, next up we have the setup with the L.A.B. and blood meal and ProMix. And again, this plant is about as true to form as you can get. It's not as far along as the others because this is one of the ones where I was having issues with germination, but that was mainly because of the seeds. And the one that was in there, I left in there. I wasn't going to tear that out and do the mix like I did the other ones because I was trying to give that seed a chance, and in the end it ended up just failing. And again, that was more to it being old seed than any issues with the mixture that's in this pot, because as you can see, while it's short, it's very dark green. And it's probably one of the greener ones that we've got in this test, but the greenness of it isn't really the point. The main reason I was trying to do this with the L.A.B.S and the nitrogen was just to have another variable to throw in there to see whether or not there's definite differences in how the plant grows when there's just extra nitrogen available. Here we have the ProMix with just leaf water used during the entire growth, and yeah, not good, not bad. Okay, so we'll start with the not bad. As you can see, none of the leaves really look deformed or anything, so that tells us that the probability of pesticides in this, or herbicides, I'm sorry, is pretty low. The problem, though, as you can tell, there's obviously a nitrogen deficiency here, even though it's the same pro mix as the standard control, and they're considerably smaller. The only thing I can pretty much try to guesstimate on why that is, it has to do with the tannins from the leaf water, which, if you can tell, it's the tannins are what makes it really, really dark. And I didn't really water down that leaf water as I was feeding it to him. Matter of fact, you can kind of tell on the surface here, it's really, really dark. And either A, it's the tannins, or B, it's that there's leaf particles or something in that water that was still robbing the nitrogen from the plant. But I can't confirm that or not. I would more lean towards the tannin, like I said, but it's just a guess. So here is our pot with my compost that's sifted and Pro Mix. And first of all, again, just one plant. And the issue, which is what hit probably about 4 out of the 6, was initially the actual soilless mix, which is too thick, too compact for the seeds to grow. That and the fact that they were just old seed. So this one was added with more perlite and then reseeded. And then it was reseeded on the 17th, just like everything else was. And eventually it did grow, because I only put in 2 seeds. 1 seed didn't turn out right, so we've got the 1. And the most important part of this, though, is look at the foliage. It looks just perfectly fine. It's not twisted. The stem might be a little bit wonky down there, but I'm not really going to pay any mind to that, because I've noticed that with green beans anyways, especially the bush type, which this is, that sometimes the stem itself can be a little wonky, but it might not matter all that much because the plant still thrives. But there is something that I did notice, and I will save that for my ending, because there's quite a few things that I've come to realize that it's going to affect my seed starting this next year. So with that, let's move on to the next. All right, now this one at first might be a little confusing, but this is my worm casting in Pro Mix pot, and this is the original bean type that I planted in the very beginning of this experiment. And it is the only one that pretty much survived until now, which is why I said I had bad seed in the initial start of this test. And that one was planted back on October the 25th, and it's doing well. I mean, it's trying to make bean pods, it's flowering and everything else. But then I also threw in another one of the 274s on November 17th, and here it is, and it is doing fine as well. There's no deformities of the leaves, and while I can say that neither one of these are entirely happy, the Roma looks like it's trying to steal as much of the nutrients for itself from the other, but all in all, both plants are true to form. So that's the thing. And it surprised me that my worm castings, even though I haven't added anything to it, just like all the other ones, these plants are still relatively nice and green considering how much plant is in this pot. So, all right, let's get to our final pot. All right, and here it is, the very last setup we have, which is leaf mold and ProMix. And again, it's got 2 plants in it, which are not only true to form, but are starting to put on pods of flowers. Now, you might notice, yes, they are a little yellow. And to illustrate how yellow they are, I will take another one, the one from the blood meal, and set it right next to it so you can sort of kind of tell how yellow they are. And while this, again, is not necessarily contingent on this experiment, it just shows that no, leaf mold does not have a whole lot of nitrogen in it. But I think I have another idea of what's going on, because if you take just the base mix, as you can see, the control pro mix is just a shade or 2 darker green than this one. And my thinking is maybe this might be more of a pH thing. Because I know sometimes leaf mold can register more on the acidic side, depending on what leaves it is, or what's around it, or on the ground when you go to collect it. So I'm assuming that maybe it's swung one way or another pH wise, which is, I could sit there and say the same for the leaf water one too. But I'm not 100% certain, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because as far as herbicides go, these are exactly the way they're supposed to be. So there you go. And if you want to know something else, this was the very first pot to not only sprout, but to also put leaves on out of all of the other restarts that I've done. So what it is about the leaf mold and what it is about the worm castings, I have no idea. But both of those inputs made a big difference in how fast the seeds germinated once they were in it. So that's it. Let me bring them all back together again so we can take one more look at it, and I'll talk a little bit about what I'm planning on doing. So there we have it. We have all of them back together again in one shot. And this whole experiment thing has been actually kind of confusing but enlightening, because like I said, the leaf mold pot and the worm mix, or worm casting mix, were 2 of the ones that I had the least amount of problems with, provided that I fluffed enough perlite into them. And outside of the one with the blood meal, they're also some of the greenest. I mean, the compost one, even though it was slow to come along, it's actually relatively green and healthy looking. So I think my plan of attack for this coming spring, when I start seeds, is I'm going to do a combination of both my worm castings and my leaf mold when I'm doing my seed start mix. So I will do, just like I did with this one, sift out my Pro Mix, but I will go 25% leaf mold, 25% worm castings, and then probably about 40% Pro Mix, and the remaining 10% will be perlite. And that'll be my mix, and see whether or not that not only improves my germination rate, but also the greening of whatever seed starts that I have, so that I don't have to add anything to the soil mix. Now, I could also boost it with the blood meal and L.A.B.S, but I don't think I'm going to need to do that. And while the compost did not necessarily blow me out of the water with how it grew the seeds, I don't think that's supposed to be its job anyways. It's supposed to be there to feed the plant once it's established. So, from now on, again, a mix of my leaf mold and my worm castings will be a part of my seed starting mix. But then my compost, I'm going to wait until I'm ready to actually pot those out or set those into a container of some sort, then mix in my compost, because then the plant will be ready to accept it, and I'm not waiting for seeds to pop up through it. So you guys let me know. You let me know whether or not that seems like a thought out plan, or whether you think that I might find issues, or something that you might think I made a mistake on with this whole experiment. All right, so once again, let's just go over everything that we saw and covered up in the grow room. The surprise superstars of this entire thing was both the leaf mold and the worm castings. So come spring, or here soon, I might even start my onions. They're going to be in a mix of 25% leaf mold, 25% worm castings, 40% pro mix that's been sifted, and then the remaining 10% will be perlite, and that'll be my mix. I should be able to get the best of both worlds with the worm castings and the leaf mold. There should be plenty of fertility there for any of the growing seedlings, and it'll help me get off to the races even better. And what we also learned is compost isn't necessarily the best thing you need to start off with to start your seeds, even though technically leaf mold and worm castings is a type of compost. But we'll save the actual compost for once those plants actually are ready to go into the ground or their pots, because that's probably where it's going to be best used. So other than that, that was it, man. I know it took a while to get this whole series done and to this point here, and you know what? For me, it was fun. Like I said, nothing is super scientific here. There's a lot of things that were not necessarily 100% the right way to go about it, because it wasn't straightforward. Nothing with me ever is. But I still learned some valuable information, and hopefully you guys did too, as well as enjoying the ride along this whole trip. So I figured before I sign off up here, let's see whether or not you guys can get a little peek at the pups. River, up. Say hi. Can you say hi? Cece, come here. Up. Come here. Come here. Cece, come. Good girl. Hi. We're getting it. They're trying to figure out the order. River. Come on, Cece. Up. Say hi. I know, baby girl. So this is Cece, my husky. And she just loves attention. All right, down. It's River's turn. River. Up. Up. Good boy. And this is my buddy River. Yes, I know. All right, down. So those are my fur babies. And of course now they're trying to fight because they want to be up here on the chair or the squeaky toy that you might have heard off and on during my video. So with that, I'm Big Will Dog 82 in the soil, in the house. And I'll see you guys later, all right? See ya. Bye.